19. It may have been a dream, featuring the white carcass of the turkey hanging from the ceiling, or it may have been the cold that woke me just as the first rays of the sun came shooting across the river from the opposite mountaintop. A strange, unreal light filled the room. I recognized it at once as sunshine reflected from snow. Springing up, I pulled my old blue robe about me, pulled on my scuffed bedroom slippers, and opened the front door. A thick layer of sparkling crystals blanketed everything. This was no thin snow such as we had had before, but snow that turned rocks and bushes into smooth mounds, weighted down tree branches, gave a muffled quality to the deep-toned voice of the river. Only yesterday I had congratulated myself on being out of the holiday turmoil, the synthetically created commercial bustle of the cities that makes mature people wearily pessimistic and regretful of the passing of other and simpler days. But now, suddenly and quite unreasonably, I felt sorry for myself, far away from all but the mildest Christmas symbols, Christmas gaiety, marooned in the Siskiyou Mountains, nostalgically aware of all I was missing. All that now seemed warm and dear. A change of heart no doubt brought on by the Christmas card scene at which I was looking. I closed the door, started a fire in the stove. The Christmas spirit had passed me by. I had heard no happy voices of children, no Christmas carols, seen no wreaths in lighted windows. Suddenly something dragged me out of this sentimental bog of self-pity. A flock of snowbirds wheeled past my kitchen window, missing the glass by inches. I had forgotten their morning crumbs, and they took this way of reminding me. Putting down the coffee pot, I reached for a small box of crackers. This morning, I thought, I'll give the little wild things a fine Christmas breakfast. I gathered up other items, raisins and shreds of suet left over from the mince pie, an apple peeled and threaded on a string, a cupful of crushed barley for my especially beloved quail. Quietly removing contraptions so as not to startle my visitors, I opened the door and stepped outside. Dozens of hungry little creatures came fluttering and twittering about me. Tiny blue birds, gray birds, with plum-colored top knots, birds with yellow breasts, brilliant red-headed fellows, bossy and spiteful, and hovering close to the ground, a few timid mountain quail. My spirits, so low for a few minutes before, lifted and soared. Did any human being ever have a more cheerful Christmas greeting? I impaled the suet on twigs of trees, spread the raisins on a board wedged flat between the bare limbs of a peach tree, hung the apple by its string, scattered cracker crumbs and crushed barley with a prodigal hand until there was no more. That done, I broke off an armful of holly oak that grew in a fringe along the bank, shook the snow from the branches, and took my treasure trove into the cabin. My thin old slippers were soaked, my hands stiff and red from the cold. But I was full of newborn Christmas spirit. Kicking off the shapeless sodden slippers, I put on the luxurious one dear Sir had given me, then shaped the holly oak branches into wreaths. They were more angular than round and had a weather-beaten air that sort of fitted into the general effect of my cabin. I hung them in the windows, then added the red ribbon bows that had come on dear Sir's presents to me. That last touch gave them the proper holiday look. I used every scrap of holly oak left over from the wreaths to frame my foggy old mirror and the map of the United States that added color and interest to one bedroom wall. Standing in the door to study the effect, I was not quite satisfied. A madrone branch clustered thick with bright orange berries, how that would brighten up the cabin. But though madrones grew along my trail, the berries hung 50 feet above my head. I'd have to be content with what I had. Time slipped away, as it often so does with me. Suddenly it was 10 o'clock. Dear Sir and his guest, Kirk something or other might show up at any minute, and I hadn't made my bed, dressed myself properly, or got the turkey down from its hook. I hurriedly put on my clothes and made the bed. Then I started to retrieve the turkey. In a few minutes, exhaustion overtook me from pulling at that dratted turkey's legs. I dropped on the bed, puffing for breath. Ever since I was 70, I have known better than to hurry, but I kept on doing it. Vicky began to bark joyously. I had to move fast, or in another minute dear Sir would be helping me off the bed and standing me on my feet to face his friend from San Diego. I rose, pushed my hair out of my eyes, made an effort to appear dignified and poised as a hostess should. But it was no use. The two men stepped inside the front door. The city man apparently did not see me as an individual, but as a part of a very funny sight that included a turkey's cadaver hanging by its feet from the ceiling. He shouted with laughter, threw off his handsome overcoat, and began to loosen the wire that held aloft the pièce de résistance of our Christmas dinner. In less than a minute, the plump white bird lay sprawled on the kitchen table. Now that there was time for introductions, none were needed. I was calling the stranger Kirk, and he, following dear Sir's example, was calling me dear madam, as if we had known each other for years. Kirk was quite a young fellow, somewhere between 40 and 45, I guessed, big, good-looking, in a rugged sort of way. He wore his city clothes well and overflowed with exuberant good humor. He seemed not to know how to speak except at the top of his lungs. So many things can happen in time that it takes to reach for an apron, pick up a hairpin, use it to fasten back a stray lock. While I was engaged in these simple acts, dear Sir shoved 3 sticks of wood into the stove. Kirk snatched a dish towel off the rack, tucked it around into his belt apron-wise, severed the feet of the turkey, and had the bird in a baking pan. "Where's your stuffing?" he shouted jovially as I stood aghast in the kitchen door. Why, I haven't made it yet. Just give me what it takes, dear madam, and I'll mix it. What assurance, I thought indignantly, but I obeyed him, assembling dry bread, a half-pound of sausage, celery, salt, pepper, and sage. When I stood back and marveled at Kirk's expert performance, this man knew what he was doing. "Guess you can tell. I'm a married man." His laughter shook the kitchen. "My wife broke me to kitchen harness before we'd been married a month. Good thing, too, when she isn't feeling well or has gone visiting. I can feed the kids as well as she can. Take a chair, dear madam. Sit in the doorway so I won't stumble over you. I'll cook your Christmas dinner. Be glad to." Dear Sir looked at me apprehensively. He had bossed me around quite a bit himself. Always for my own good, of course, but even he hadn't dared to take such liberties in my kitchen. But somehow it seemed all right for Kirk to act in this fashion. I sat down as I had been told to do and watched. It wasn't long until Kirk had the turkey in the oven. Then he went on to plan the rest of dinner according to his own ideas and what he found on the kitchen shelves. "Mashed potatoes," he said thoughtfully. "Creamed onions. I see you have plenty. Apple, celery, and lettuce salad. I'll make French dressing and by the great horn spoon to you do I see mince pie. No one could ask for a finer dinner than we'll have, dear madam. Oh, I forgot something." He dashed into the other room, returned with a paper sack from which he extracted a bottle of sparkling Burgundy. "For you, dear madam," he said, bowing ceremoniously. "May it add a bit to your Christmas cheer." "Thank you, Kirk," I said gratefully. "We'll drink a toast to Christmas as we eat dinner. Dear Sir, please put it outside to chill." "Now," Kirk said briskly, "I'll set the table for 3. 4, I said. "Another guest will be here before long." "That's going to make things crowded," Kirk frowned, then went on cheerfully. "I suppose we can pull the table out from the wall, manage somehow." "I hope you won't find it too difficult having him here," I said, very thinly veiling the sarcasm of my words. "Oh, no, Kirk assured me kindly. "I'll manage nicely. Help me shove the table over a bit, will you, dear sir? Now, a few inches this way. A little more. Good." Kirk went on with his task of getting dinner ready. Talk, laughter, and good smells filled the cabin. 2 hours went by. Kirk reported that the turkey was almost done. Vicky gave her warning yip yip that meant someone was coming up the trail. Dear Sir opened the door and Monsieur Frenchy came in. But this was a changed Frenchy, not the wild, garlic-scented savage I was used to seeing striding along the road. Wonder of wonders, his beard was trimmed and shining clean. His rakish beret perched on his bushy hair. A new bandana encircled his neck. He had squeezed his big body into a black velveteen jacket reminiscent of Beaux Arts days, but below it appeared the jaded old pants he always wore. Perhaps he had no others, tucked into heavy knee boots. I made an attempt to introduce Kirk and Frenchy, but got nowhere. There were shouts of laughter, much beating of each other's backs, and a tangle of French and English. Evidently they had met before, in a bar at Happy Camp, I guessed. Sit down, everybody. Let's eat, Kirk shouted. Pardon, said Frenchy, switching to his Oxford accent. First, I wish to present Madame with a small memento of Christmas. He produced from behind his back, where he had been concealing it all this time, a lovely madrone branch laden with orange berries. Oh, thank you, Frenchy, I exclaimed with delight. That will put the finishing touch to my decorations. Give it to me. But wait, Madame, I have a real present for you. Something choice. I made it myself from my mother's prized recipe. He set a pound coffee can on the table. Pâté de foie gras, he said reverently. Good Lord, a pound of it, Kirk shouted. Let's have some on crackers for an appetizer right now. I shook my head regretfully. Sorry, no crackers. I fed all I had to the birds. We'll toast, Stu. Quickly, Kirk had bread browning on top of the stove and was prying the coffee can open. Out came a mysterious and tantalizing odor. Exotic, I guess you'd call it. Dear Sir turned pale. Kirk spread a generous spoonful of pâté de foie gras on a piece of toast and set his teeth into it. I thought I detected a startled look on his face, accompanied by a fleeting moment of hesitation. If so, they were instantly gone. He turned to Frenchy, chewing zestfully. Wonderful, wonderful, he mumbled. Well, where, Frenchy, did you get goose livers in this country? No, my friend, there were no geese in the Siskiyous. Like much pâté de foie gras in La Belle France, this is made from good fat horse liver. Kirk nodded, took another bite. Dear Sir moved unobtrusively toward the front door, his pallor increasing. It was, I saw, time for me to assert myself. Thank you, Frenchy. I prize your gift highly. I picked up the can, put the lid on, pressed it down tightly. Dear Sir, I called, will you please take this to the cellar? I hate to seem selfish, but after all, Frenchy gave this to me, you know. Frenchy's beard quivered with pleasure. I saw what I thought to be a look of gratitude in Kirk's eyes. Dear Sir grabbed the coffee can, dashed out the back door. Frenchy turned to hang his beret on a nail. Kirk took advantage of the moment to drop his toast and pâté de foie gras into the firebox of the stove. Dear Sir came back. Frenchy seated himself expansively. Kirk placed the big, delectable-looking bird on the table in the roasting pan. There was no platter, as he very well knew by this time. With plates, knives, forks, spoons, cups, and saucers. There was no room for anything else on the table. The top of the stove became our buffet, sideboard, serving table, or whatever. Kirk poured the sparkling burgundy into our thick, white china cups, and we drank to the spirit of Christmas everywhere. Then we attacked the delectable food Kirk had prepared. No one could have gone a gayer, more altogether satisfying Christmas dinner than we did in that remote and primitive cabin, with the wind in the fir trees and the great Klamath River furnishing organ music to accompany our feast. The long shadows of late afternoon were creeping up the eastern side of the canyon when we rose from the table. The walls of the little kitchen seemed to have drawn us together in a feeling of comradeship, even affection. What matter that we ate from thick chipped dishes, had scant elbow room? We had shared the spirit of Christmas.